So hello and welcome back to Tycoon Terminal. I'm Steve, and we're just gonna start theming up our roller coaster here. This is actually 15 times faster than the actual video, so I do apologise if there's a lot going on very quickly. I've decided to go down like the theme of this like stone monster that is following you or chasing you through this forest. So very quickly I've put all the trees are in there. I've added a little bit of a pool, a lake initially when you first go in. And I'm just kind of constructing these monsters, and it's I quite like the way that the ride and the monsters kind of interact with each other on this one. You see that the service bay there just at the front. So I've added the effects sequencer because I was having trouble getting the effects to work quite how I wanted them. So here I was wanting like the fist of the monster to kind of punch the train to send it backwards on a different route, and it wouldn't do it just off the coaster trigger for some reason. So I added the effects sequencer and it started working. So don't know why. After I made the first one, it worked okay off the coaster sequencer. So I was very confused with that one. Don't know why it kind of bugged out, but as we know, there's a fair few bugs with Planet Coaster 2. So yeah, I wanted a bit of a fire effect, so when it did punch the train, that the effect, there'll be a flame effect on like an old boat, which will set alight as you go backwards, and you'll see that. On this coaster, there is a controlled spin. On it, so don't expect anything too rapid when it comes to the spinning. There is one bit where it does spin relatively quickly, but it is controlled. And here I was just adding like the walkways so the staff can get to where they need to be. Now the thing with the walkways, the transfer track kind of is in the way, so I kind of took inspiration of how it is on 13, where the actual walkway is elevated so the track can slide underneath it and still allow access to the train. So if it does have a stoppage over that section of track, you can still reach it. One of the things I was considering throughout building this is how the staff going to get to where they need to be. So I've made like quite a consideration of where the walkways are and making sure that all areas essentially are accessible. There's only one part of the ride where it wouldn't really be very realistic on where that actually is. So that's where the launch going uphill, and where that section of track is, where it is going uphill, if it did stall for some reason or it didn't launch, it would actually roll back into a low point where you would normally have some kind of like option to like launch it or restart it, or even a physical break at the end of a launch so it doesn't actually fully leave the magnets. But I haven't done that. So the modification probably would be, if you were to make that in real life, would be to have a walkway next to that upwards launch with a mechanical brake at the end of it, a bit like how it is on Helix at Leesburg. There is a mechanical brake that will prevent the train from rolling back onto the low point, as that is a sloped launch, a bit like what we've got in here. Of course, I've got space limitations as we are putting this inside a building. You can tell there's a lot of inspiration from Valhalla, which is the Dark Rider Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and I kind of wanted to go with that vibe, but with my own spin on things. So, and obviously being, I was originally thinking of water ride, and I thought, you know what, no, I really want a roller coaster rather than a water ride. Here, there's I'm playing around with the sequencing for the rock monster. It's actually quite cool. It'll actually punch the track from through the roof. So when I put the roofing in, you'll see in a little bit, I kind of spent quite a bit of time trying to hide that from view, because I want it to be quite a surprise. You sat there, everything stops, you think you've escaped, and then the fist kind of comes down, hits that track, and then you'll drop down into the lower level, into the basement, if you will. I'm actually really chuffed with how that came out. And you can see like I put in like the beams across where the roof is going to go, and the idea of that is to hide that effect so it can't be seen from the train. And using these small Intamin trains has actually worked out quite well, because if we had the 13 style train on there, you would actually be too far forwards, so you'd actually see the effect. But because we're using the small train and it's the same length of track, we can actually hide a lot of the effects around here. So when the fist does come down, it'll just hit it, and you can't see. Well, you can't, from the right perspective, you can't see anything from there apart from the actual piston mechanism that makes it go down. So I'm really chuffed with that. I'm adding like a staircase there, just so you know, if there is some kind of breakdown there, we can actually get people off the ride safely and get them downstairs. So just adding the walkways in there. To be fair, the building, because it's still going to be encased in the bigger building, which you'll see in a little bit, but I had a lot of trouble here with this because I wanted to encase this smaller building with the drop track, but the clearances were really tight on the train coming through, so I spent way too long actually tweaking this to get that you can see me, like, I paused it just to have a quick look around and see, hang on, have I got enough space there? Is that going to clear? Is that going to allow the train to go through and not clip into the building? And I did spend quite a lot of time making sure that it would fit, essentially. Once I kind of got that into place, I thought, you know what, let's try and do a little bit of theming inside. There's some shipwreck planks from the mythology theme set that I've used to make it look like the floor that was in the upstairs bit has kind of come through, and again some mist and fire effects in there, just to really enhance that, you know, that show sequence in there. I do think it actually works really quite well, having the fire effect in there that triggers when that fist kind of like comes down and then you free fall down. Some of the supporting was a little bit tricky, as the supports in the game, it didn't generate any for the top section of the ride, so I had to manually put all these in. There are some sections that probably are a little bit too far apart from each other. In real life, they would be strengthened with like a quad piece of track, but that's not an option in the game, so I've kind of like built like a support that stretches out over that entire stretch of track to just add a little bit of a support structure there. I wanted to add a little bit of fencing just on these walkways, just to kind of make it like, I know it's not ideal, but just make it so it's a little bit safer for the people who are working up there. You would normally have like fall arrest harnesses and like safety lines running along these walkways, especially some of these ones that are quite at height and some of these brake runs. I wanted to really build a lot of the theming before building the outside shell of the building, because once you actually put that shell around the outside, it can become relatively tricky to get everything kind of lined up how you want it. With the new planet coaster, it does actually get quite dark inside once you've built around. Well, it's supposed to. And there is actually a bug that I've got with. If anyone can help, I'd appreciate the comments below, because I have got a few sections where once I've encased the building, you'll see it's still a little bit light, only in certain areas though, which is bizarre, because it'll look like fully daylight if you're stood in certain parts of the building and then be pitch black if you stood in another part of the building, which, as we know, is not the way it works. I have actually sequenced all the ride vehicles up and set the timings to be correct. I did do a few modifications to the track layout. The we have like a few additional block sections, so we've got block sections before you go into the drop track. Now, to be fair, on 13 we have lift 2, which is before the drop track section, and that's purely so you can get that throughput up, because, and also you want to have somewhere to stop before you go into the drop track relatively close by, in case there's some kind of technical issue and the drop track doesn't lift up correctly. The stopping point beforehand is a good idea just before you go in, because the reset time for the drop track can be quite lengthy. I know it's relatively quick. It's usually you know, it's less than 30 seconds. But like you want to have that time there. So, you know, if you have that, trying to get my words out, if you have the block section just before that drop track, the train will stop somewhere relatively close, where if you had it at just a straight piece of track going into the drop track, that has to fully reset before you could leave. Let's use 13, for example. If you took out lift 2, the train would be regularly stopping at the top of lift 1 because the drop track hasn't yet lifted up into position. So that's why it's a good idea to put a block section just before an element like a switch track or a drop track. I did actually initially have just the one block section between the first switch track that I put in, and the trains are just like backing up for ages. And I thought, you know what, like we can have a lot of trains on here. We can actually have 7, and it's laid up with a onload and offload platform. So they're really going. These trains are going to be flying out constantly once people are going onto the ride. So I thought, you know what, I think we'll add a block section. I think I actually add that in a minute. Once I've kind of tested it a few times, and I thought, you know what, we can actually maximize the throughputs on this thing. I want this ride to not really get massive queues. I have a feeling it probably will because it's quite well themed, and the layout, even though the layout's relatively boring, according to the Planet Coaster stats. I just kind of like looking at the frequency of the trains coming in at the moment, and just, you know, having a look, see if I thought it was all right there. And you know what, I'm relatively happy with that. I think the frequency of the trains is good. The biggest thing was that the switch track has to have switched back before you could leave the little waiting area that I'm building with the door. You saw a few moments ago where the door that opens up, and that allows the train to like proceed into like the themed area. It was waiting there until the switch track had gone back, and it was really lowering the throughput down the ride. And I thought, you know what, let's just add another block just before that launch that goes up and into the switch track. And it was the best thing I've done, because the throughputs on it now, that the ride runs incredibly efficiently. So if you've got a really busy park like what we've got at the moment, like the Leekington Lakes is like, it's very, very busy, very, very popular park, but we don't have anything that really has a high throughput. And this coaster ticks that box, even though the individual cars, they're fitting a lot of people in each car. And I believe we can dispatch like roughly about every 30 seconds, but I think it might actually be less than that. I think the interval I've set for 10 seconds, which is crazy, really. You would never get that, and I'd probably be more expecting around the for a coaster like this, if you had people actually checking restraints and things, you'd be looking around the 30-second mark. Another part of the problem with a coaster like that is, rather than having 2 across, you've got 4 across, which does make it a little bit more tricky to check the restraints there. So you'd probably be looking for something similar to kind of the Smiler kind of interval times, although the Smiler interval times are actually quite lengthy. I believe about 50 seconds ish off the top of my head, if I remember right. I think there's usually the Smiler was quite cool actually. It had a rather than a set interval time, it would actually give you like a star rating on how quickly your dispatches were, and you could get up to like 5 stars, and if you kept hitting it consistently, you would be able to dispatch it sooner, and that interval time would drop down. You may see these lights that I've put in. These are quite cool. The idea of those is that I wanted like a constellation in the stars that you see. It's guiding you to like a safe exit, if you will. So I just thought those rope lights probably look quite good in the dark. And I thought, you know what, just chuck those in and make like some kind of like symbol in the ceiling. It's not actually, to be fair, it probably is on a real star constellation, but I didn't actually base it off anything particularly. I was just thought I'd draw something. So this is where a bit of like that Valhalla kind of esque facade comes in, where I just wanted like rocks over the entrance area. And I thought, you know what, if I'm doing this, I might as well put the waterfall in as well. So I added in the waterfall with a small pond just at the base of the facade for the ride, essentially. One cool thing you can do, because I was bearing in mind that I was planning on putting this onto the workshop, is adding this water effect, these water tiles. And these will actually really good if you are planning on putting something onto the workshop, because terrain doesn't come with the coaster. I have been quite careful to make sure that when this is released on the Frontier workshop, that you will be able to just click it and, you know, it'll just work. Essentially, you'll be able to just place it in and all will be very well. Fingers crossed. I haven't tried it yet myself, but that's the theory. That's the theory. It's been an awful long time trying to get all the light out of this building, and as I said earlier, I just can't seem to get the light to like fully disappear. The entrance and exit area, this is actually the exit platform here. I spent not overly too long on the exit area. I probably should have decorated it a little bit more than I did, but it's not as good as the entrance area, if I'm honest. I thought the station onload building is much nicer, and it also has like a rock that has been taken from the forest and brought back, which is a part of the reason why these monsters are relatively angry and wanting to destroy the vehicle. I haven't themed the vehicle on this yet. I was thinking of adding a little bit of theming, but I'm probably just going to keep it neat for now, and then I might come back to it another day. I'm not very good at adding details to the vehicle, so if I manage to come up with a way of making it work a little bit better, then I'll come up with a way of making the theming attach better. I'll give it a go. So here I just wanted to add a doorway into the drop zone. So the doorway opens kind of last minute, just to give you a little bit of a scare effect, especially how spiky those poles are. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to add those and have it so they lift up just on that last second before the train goes in. A bit like Test Track at Epcot. If you've been on that, you'll see there's like a doorway that opens like last minute just before you get to it. I kind of wanted to have that kind of effect on there. With the building, the station building isn't the best. I'm going to hold my hands up. I probably could have done better with the station building, but I'm already like 5 hours into the build at this point, so you've got a limit of like how much time can you sink into a project. So this was essentially an entire weekend of building. Like, yeah, I can't do that every weekend, unfortunately, but I did want to make something a little bit special. I think I succeeded in that. But yeah, you can't spend like a full weekend doing just one coaster. But I do think it's kind of worth the payout, and then if you want to place this into your park, it's going to be a lot easier for you to actually just take it. I probably will do some like expansion to it in the future. I just kind of wanted something that is almost ready to be fitted into the park, but not quite. So it's just going to be plopped in essentially. So this is me trying to fix the lighting issue. I just made the walls doubly thick and then covered up any areas where there was a chance of just having like a small exposed section. It helped a little bit, but still not perfect. So again, if please comment below on how to completely get the light out of these buildings, because I really struggled getting the light to disappear. You'll notice it gets very light on the exit platform area. That last brake run and the exit just seems to become daytime inside. I'm not sure why that is. So this is quite a fun little bit. I knew I was kind of getting towards the end, so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to chuck in a few of the Viking effects and just build the queue line, add some fencing, and just try and make it look a little bit more Viking-esque on the outside of the building. People aren't going to know really what they're letting themselves in for until they go inside and sit on it, which is a bit like how I felt when I went on Uncharted for the first time, which is a similar type of ride system to what this is that we've put in here. The planks that they've got are actually quite good. I probably should have removed the handrails before placing these and just done them myself if I was going to put themed ones in, but I think that it's okay. I've seen worse out there, and this is just a dark ride anyway. The theming around the outside of the building is also going to need a little bit of tweaking once I've placed it into the park, because it is very much like the front of it is themed, the sides are not. So the side and the back is just a box. So we need to need to look into that to make it fully immersive. But my plan is to try and have it so it's facing out the park, and have trees either side to kind of hide the warehouse that it's in. So I've added a few like walkways and things around. I just did a little bit of tweaking here just to finish off. I didn't quite like how while you're waiting to go in that little waiting area, the idea is like there's a story playing. You could see the other train come in. I didn't like that, so I kind of encased it. So it's now a lot more hidden. You don't see the other train as it comes back around. And I think it works really, really well having it like that. So you can't see the other vehicles, that separation. So when you do come out, you'll just see the door closing, and then it'll be soon to be your turn. Adding the trees around the outside just to, again, enhance it, and then just add a few trees on the inside just to make things just that little bit better. And yeah, I think we should jump on the ride and have a go.